Hello everyone and welcome back to the good stuff and the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the finals of the first American Chess Congress in 1857. Paul Charles Morphy with the white pieces in game 1 against Louis Paulsen. Now, so far both of them had a brilliant winning streak. Both of them 9 wins, 0 losses and only 1 draw. And now, of course, they face each other. So far, two of them played 4 games. One game that we've shown, it was a blindfold simultaneous game, which Morphy won as he was one of the contestants in a simultaneous game that Paulsen was holding. Then there are 2 other blindfold games that they played. One game was won by Morphy, one game was drawn, and then there is one more game that was not recorded. We do not have records of these moves. That game also ended in a draw. They say maybe it was never recorded, maybe the moves just weren't published, but who knows, maybe someday someone decides who has these moves that he wants to publish them, and then we're gonna have that as well. But so far we don't. So this is basically 5th game between the two of them, but the first game of the actual American Chess Congress. So without further ado, let's check it out. Morphy with the white pieces opens with e4, as he usually does. We have c5 by Paulsen, going for the Sicilian defense, and now the immediate d4. So c captures on d4, and now, well, Morphy could go for some c3 gambit upon this way. He just goes knight to f3, and then he will decide whatever Paulsen plays. Maybe he will transpose into the normal Sicilian or play something else, maybe c3, bishop c4, and so on. So we have e6 by Paulsen, very strong reply, and now just knight captures on d6, just transposing into the normal Sicilian. Bishop to c5, now putting pressure on the knight, and the knight to b3. Attacking the bishop, bishop back to b6, and knight to c3. So Morphy has 2 knights out, and the Paulsen has this very nice bishop. With knight to e7 by Paulsen, now ready to castle. F5 and the d5 might be ideas in the future, and Morphy goes for bishop to f4, and it's a really nice idea by Morphy. He wants to develop the queen, he wants to maybe castle queenside, maybe develop the bishop and then kingside. But what Paulsen definitely needs to do is play d5 here. It's something we often say when we show a Sicilian game. If your opponent allows you to push d5, you push d5, because next move might be too late. So instead of d5, Paulsen castle here, probably thinking he's gonna play d5 the next move, but here Morphy says no, he won't. He just plays bishop to d6, and now how will Paulsen ever play d5? That's the question. So instead of d5, Morphy strikes in the center with f5. As Morphy's king is still in the center of the board, it does make sense to open up some lines. With e5 by Morphy, again a principled idea, not allowing to open lines. And there are some modern games where knight b to c6 was played, and even where f4 was played, but after a6 we reach a position that was never reached again after this game in 1857. So Morphy continues development. We have bishop to e2 and knight b to c6 now. We have castles by Morphy and rook to f7 now. This is a very annoying pin. You can't move the knight, so rook to f7. And now king to h1. Morphy also wants to start pushing his f-pawn, and due to the pin, he's not able to. So king h1. He wants to play maybe something like f4. Maybe after f4, bring a rook lift. Maybe rook f3 to g3, get the rook into the attack. So Paulsen prevents it with f4. He says, no, you don't. But you can't just take something without giving something. So here, by taking more space on the king side, you no longer control the e4 square. And this is exactly what Morphy uses, knight to e4, now with an excellent square for his knight. Knight to f5. Paulsen also freed the f5 square for his knight, now putting pressure on Morphy's bishop here, but Morphy just continues. Bishop h5 attacks the rook. We have g6, pushing back Morphy's bishop, and bishop to g4 now, saying, okay, you could capture my bishop here, but if you do, I'm just gonna get an even better square for my knight, and it's gonna be a really tough position to play. And although, okay, maybe after rook f8 you can maybe develop your queen to g5 or maybe to h4, but it's hard to imagine that something good can come of it. So instead, Paulsen decides that he wants to go about it the other way. He goes knight back to g7, and he wants to start pushing on the king side now with h5, h4, g5, and so on. So queen to f3 by Morphy, and now h5. With bishop to h3 and now queen to h4, here planning now g5 and g4. but Morphy, of course, doesn't allow it. He plays knight to f6 with check, king h8, and now queen to e4, putting pressure on the g6 pawn here. We have queen to g5 defending, and now g3. And here with this g3 move, what Morphy is saying, I'm either going to open up the g file and then use the g file for my rooks, which would be great, since I would get access to the g6 pawn. And if you capture, then I get a nice open f file, or maybe maybe I can then even put my rooks to the g file. Okay, due to the bishop slicing over this way, probably not, but still I would get the open f file. Maybe I can double rooks on the f file, and it's still unclear how on earth are you going to develop your light square bishop and get this rook into the game. So for now, it's as if Morphy is down 2 pieces. Well, a piece and the rook. At least until he figures out a way how to get them into the game. We have f3 by Paulsen, not allowing the opening of any files, and he says that, okay, if you capture with the queen, then I have knight captures here, and then I just you lose the defender of the knight on f6, and if you capture, it's just much better for Paulsen now, as the knight will fall as well. So instead, Morphy says, okay, my queen is gonna keep defending the e5 pawn along with the bishop, and I go for the f3 pawn with the knight d2. We have bishop to d8 now. There's nothing you can do about the pawn, so bishop to d8, now putting more pressure on the knight here. Knight captures on f3, first with an attack on the queen, queen to h6, and now a silent but deadly move by Morphy, rook to g1. And you'll see why it's such a nice move. We have bishop captures on f6, e captures on f6, and now not recapturing right away, but first knight to e8, putting pressure on the bishop, and also ready to recapture the pawn on the next move. We have bishop to f4, attacking Paulsen's queen, and now comes knight captures on f6 by Paulsen. He says, okay, you capture here, I'm gonna capture your queen on e4, but this doesn't work because of a very clear reason. So feel free to pause the video and try to find why it doesn't work and how does Morphy win this game, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting that you are able to win a piece here. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen captures on c6. And it's actually, well, it is clear now that you see it. Point is that if you recapture, then just bishop captures the queen and you're up a piece because you just won a piece on c6. So this is not possible for Paulsen. Paulsen has to play queen captures on f4, another idea. Now, of course, if captures, just captures, but now Morphy continues with queen captures on c8, and this comes with check. So first Paulsen has to recapture, and only then will Morphy recapture the queen, and he will be up a piece. So rook captures, g captures on f4, and now after all is said and done, Morphy is up a piece, and now his rook occupies the beautiful semi-open g file, which will go a long way. The knight is coming to e5, and it's just very hard for Paulsen to continue playing this. But what insight on Morphy's part, playing rook to g1. Now the rook occupying such a beautiful file. You'll just see what happens. Rook captures on c2. Now, Paulsen is down material. He really needs to win back some material. If he can gobble up some of these pawns, then maybe he can even start pushing and well, try find some compensation for the piece, although very unlikely. Rook 8 to c1. Morphy says, okay, we either trade, which is of course favorable to me as I'm up material, or you move the rook and then I get my rook to c8 and grab even more activity. Rook captures on f2 is played by Paulsen, but now rook to c8 with check. We have knight to g8 blocking, and now knight to e5, threatening to just pick up the g6 pawn with check. We have rook to g7, but it doesn't really help. Knight captures on g6 with check, king h7, and now knight back to f8 with check. King to h6, and now knight captures on d7, saying, okay, if you want to trade here, it's okay. Rook captures, puts pressure on your rook. After you move the rook, I just play bishop captures here, and it's game over. I'm still up a piece, and nothing is stopping this passed pawn. All of these squares are covered by my bishop and the knight, so it's free running forward for my passed pawn. So after knight captures on d7, we have rook captures on d7, and now rook c captures on g8. And now there's not much you can do here. Paulsen grabbed a bit more material. He played rook captures on f4, but now bishop captures on e6, grabbing the pawn, attacking the rook. We have rook to e7 attacking the bishop, but it was also in this position on move 36 that Louis Paulsen resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. It's actually a forced mate in 4 moves, but I'm not going to show it to you before you pause the video and try to find it for yourselves. While I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the nice mate in 4. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook 8 to g8 to g6 check. You free the g8 square for your bishop. There's only one move for the black king, king to h7, and now bishop to g8 with check. King h8, only move, and now rook to h6 with check. The bishop is defended by the rook, so there's only one move. Rook to h7, and now rook captures, and h7 is mate, and that's mate in 4. So, like I said, after rook to e7, Paulsen resigned, and after 5.5 hours of play, the game ended, and the first game of their match goes to Paul Morphy. And even though it's the finals, it's still best of 5, so whoever comes on top. Yeah, really impressive stuff by Morphy, and also very instructive after this bishop to f4 was played. Like I said, whenever you get a chance to play d5 in the Sicilian, if white allows it, play it, because, well, maybe even as of next move, like you've seen in this game, you will not be able to play it for the rest of the game, which is what happened here, and it cost Paulsen dearly. So we'll see what Paulsen learned from this game, and will he be able to apply it somehow differently in the rest of the match, or will he maybe like Morphy's previous opponent, maybe try to take the battle not maybe into open games, semi-open games, but maybe into close games and close positions, because maybe there Morphy will not be able to shine as bright as he does in open positions. So yeah, like I said, 5.5 hours of great play, but other games will last even longer, and this is going to be somewhat of a problem, but we're going to talk about that in the rest of the Morphy saga. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Morten Ristorp, Jonathan Owen, John Austin, Begum Impex SRL, and Elias Dahu for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the Morphy saga, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.